All right, so it's 4th of July here in the United States, which is where I am in New York City. And whatever you think about this blasted hellscape that is America on this blasted hellscape that is our world in this slowly drowning and dying, I don't know. We've been enveloped in smog for the past week, so I'm a little fatalist about everything at this point. But however you feel about America, this is a time when we celebrate its founding. And when we try to celebrate some of the good things about it. And how do we as Americans do that? We do that by exploding things that terrify our dogs and by eating lots and lots of red meat and of other meats packed into the intestines of other creatures. You know what? Now that I say that out loud, it's incredibly metal and I'm on board. As with all holidays, when we celebrate them in real life, we want to have some kind of a reflection of them in our games. This is my favorite alternatives for 4th of July in Faerun. So Faerun specifically, I'm going to focus on Waterdeep because it's really my home. It's where I want to live all the time, always, forever. So let's talk about Waterdeep and its couple national holidays, because the calendar of Harptos has a bunch of its own holidays that are all very focused around, well, the passing of the seasons and the connection with the gods. 4th of July has nothing to do with the passing of the seasons. It has to do with time we went bang bang at the right time and it went real good. So let's talk about Waterdeep's national holidays and a couple that I feel like fit into 4th of July pretty well. So our first holiday is Founders Day, which was celebrated, or I guess is celebrated in your game, if you wanted to, on the 1st of Flame Rule, which is like, what month is that? June, February, March, April, May. It's actually July. So like that kind of checks out. It's like midsummer, right? Midsummer happens at the end of the month, and it also contains Shield Meat, which is a more universal holiday for Faerun. Founders Day in Waterdeep is this, I mean, you guessed it, the celebrating of the founding of the city. Waterdevians celebrate Founders Day in a bunch of different ways. In the Field of Triumph, which is this big gladiatorial arena in the like northwestern area of the city, like in the Seaward, where it's all kind of ritzy and glitzy, by a bunch of theaters as well. And the Field of Triumph is usually used for, I guess, safe sort of competition, martial competition, not like gladiatorial event. There's no blood sports in Waterdeep, but a lot more like sports events and races and stuff like that. But on Founders Day, the Field of Triumph is covered in these illusory replications of the story of like the history of Waterdeep and the founding of Waterdeep and the Troll Wars and all this stuff. They also have marching and like war games of the city guard that happen within the Field of Triumph during Founders Day. Various fest halls across the city, north and south, have these big feasts, and they also celebrate with these costume competitions about the important people from Waterdeep's history, like Blackstaff, Kilburn Ossian, and Rarlor, and of course Ahghairon. We'll get to Ahghairon? Ahghairon. We'll get to him a little bit later. And between midday and sunset, a like small conclave of wizards gather to cast illusions over Castle Waterdeep that make it look like Nemours Hold, which is the tiny stone fort that was once built on the site where Castle Waterdeep now stands. And that's the original keep that the town of Waterdeep started to be built around, and the very like founding moments of the city's history. Now, I'm gonna be honest, that doesn't sound that cool, but it's described as an extraordinary display of magical art. And I mean, to be fair, it must be like an absolute huge series of spells that all weave together. It's kind of like making a movie, right? I think that it would be really cool to do an adventure where the illusion was so powerful that like Nemours Hold kind of like temporarily took place there, and your adventurers could go way back in time, maybe like travel back in time to original Waterdeep era and like interact there for a night or something like that, or maybe do like just a dungeon delve into Nemours Hold. That'd be cool. I've also used the illusions in the Field of Triumph in my Waterdeep adventures pretty consistently, especially if someone captures your characters, puts them in the Field of Triumph, and releases things that are not illusions but match the illusions onto the field. And then suddenly your players are battling illusions but also dealing with real monsters and they can't tell which is which. That's fun and spooky. The next holiday I want to talk about is Ahghairon's Day, celebrated on the 1st of Elisis. And Ahghairon, for any of you who don't know, was kind of like the founder of modern Waterdeep. He was a wizard who rose up against the warlord that owned Waterdeep at the time, was like, no, you don't get to make an empire. We're going to make a good city here. He established all the guilds, a bunch of stuff. Though other than being a national holiday and celebrating a single individual who is important to the founding of a nation, it's not very similar to 4th of July. It is celebrated with a lot of toasts and specifically with a lot of bards singing and new music dedicated to Ahghairon and to Waterdeep. One of my favorite details about Ahghairon's Day is that Waterdevians leave his favorite flower, violets, at his tower, which still stands and no one's been inside since he died, at the plinth or at various different other places within the city that were important. Then there is Brightswords, which is very 4th of July because it's very martial. It's celebrated on the 21st of Elend, and it's like an opportunity for Waterdeep to show off its military forces, whatever they may be. The Griffin cavalry does like flybys over the city. No one's allowed to have donkeys out or the Griffins will descend down and grab donkeys and eat them. But there are big parades that happen all the way down the city. There's like combat competitions between the city watch and the city guard, and also between civilians. That's a great adventure hook right there. It's also big for an enlistment day for Waterdeep's forces, right? So you can join the city watch or the city guard, and sometimes they'll have like special bonuses. Also, there's a huge tradition of boxing tournaments all up and down the city. And I think it'd be cool to do like an adventure that was like a series of different boxing tournaments going from various different places and introducing weirder and more arcane rules as you went, and strange arenas for the boxing games, and make it all unarmed combat and very brawly. That would be fun. But at the very end of the day, the Griffin cavalry kind of tops it all off by doing this mock battle in the Field of Triumph against illusory forces that the Watchful Order of Magists and Protectors summons over the crowded stadium, and everyone looks up and eyeballs them. So we've got a lot of holidays so far, but none of them are nearly as explodey as 4th of July, and that's what I want to solve with this last one, because this is my top pick for 4th of July facsimiles in Waterdeep. Dragondown is a festival celebrated in Waterdeep on the 20th of Kythorn, and it celebrates the defeat of several dragons around the city before the Dragon Ward was put up. Technically, because of a special staff that Ahghairon made, there's no way for dragons to come into Waterdeep proper. They can't. Magically, they are banned. So this holiday reenacts the dragon killings all over the city, and parades lead from central points out to them, and then they have these big performances and lots of theater, and I imagine lots of pyrotechnics, lots of explosions, lots of big booms, and maybe illusory dragons spitting illusory fire down at actors. And each of these parades sports this big freaking effigy of the dragon that was destroyed in each different spot. And once the parade reached its destination, it was set on fire like Burning Man and burned to the ground. But the main parade reenacted the 2 different times that Kistarinath, the big red dragon, was driven from the city. And it includes 2 different effigies. One from when he was a big bad red dragon, and then one from when he was transformed into a Dracolich. And it reaches its destination on the slopes of Mount Waterdeep. And actually, interesting fact, and this could be really cool for a very sports-focused Waterdeep campaign. What an idea. But there's a previous festival, the Festival of Plowing and Running, which, the winners from the running races, the chariot races, and the horse races champion all participate in the burning of this final Dracolich effigy. There's a couple 4th of July analogies inside of Waterdeep. As always, stay miles away from boredom, and I'll see you next time.